Teachers union sues mom because she was seeking information about critical race theory in her children's public schools. Yeah, there's no CRT in public schools. Nothing to see here. On you go, off your way. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and can they lie to you anymore? Anymore at all? This is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. MyPillow is always offering great deals, and this week they're going all the way back to their roots, offering their premium MyPillow valued at $70 for just $30. All you have to do is use the code Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E. Visit MyPillow.com and save up to 66% on all other items as well. That is our code Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E. All right, we start in Rhode Island today, where a mother is seriously being sued by a major school union, teacher school union, simply for doing open records requests after the schools wouldn't give her any information on what her daughter was being taught in their school. So they're upping the ante, these ridiculous teachers unions. Now, the fact that you've got a major teachers union with a battery of teacher-paid-for lawyers going after a single mom, all because she wants to know, what are you teaching my child? What happened to the days when a mom, these were public schools, and a mom could walk into the school and she'd be shown around the school, she'd be able to sit in on a class, she'd be able to look at the curriculum in the textbooks. Those days are long gone.
And this is happening to Nicole Solis in South Kingston, Rhode Island. We actually reported on this before when she initially put out the request, because she went in front of the school board and she talked to them and said, I would like to know what is actually being taught. So the guidance was to file FOIAs, Freedom of Information Act requests. So she did, and she put out hundreds of them. And for that, then she was ridiculed by the school board. She was ridiculed by the superintendents and all the administration. And they're at every turn they were trying to block. And at this point, now they're actually suing her.
Keep in mind, they told her to file them.
Yeah,
she tried to get the information through channels, right? She showed up and said, show me what you got. The superintendent said, initially said he'd give it to her, right? He'd provide her with certain information. Of course, he did not. After he got back to his office and conferred to his legal goons, he decided to tell her, no, let's not make it easy. You're going to have to file a Freedom of Information Act. She filed a bunch of them, and all of a sudden, this mom persisted. She didn't
that's
quit.
What it was.
This was a runaround, and most moms, looking at the paperwork and what it would take to get all those things filed, and how up to like 180 days you might have to wait to get your stuff back, would have just quit. But not this mom, and so she's being made a scapegoat now. This is a message. The Goon Squad unions are sending you a message, Mom and Dad. If you're willing to go through all the channels you have to go through, jump through all the hoops you have to get your kids' curriculum to find out what's being taught about race, then they're going to still try to block it by suing you.
Well, and that's what's happening. Like, Mom and Dad, you have to remember, they have all their legal team and they have all these people, and they're not afraid to just completely squash you.
It costs the superintendents nothing.
But if you can fight back, at least, what's worse than just being stung by a bee is when the bee keeps just pestering you. I'd rather just be stung and be done with it, but no, it's the pestering that ultimately will win out in the end. At least I'm hoping in this case. But
good.
She's being sued, just so everyone is aware, of the Rhode Island branch of the largest teachers union, which is the National Education Association. So it's Rhode Island specifically. Their little minions are coming out to attack her. And you can see that she, has the papers. She was given the papers, and she let everyone know that she was served her papers for being sued.
You've been served by the public school, not in the friendly public service sort of way that you would expect from a public school whose basically you're paying for, Mom. You've been served in that weird, creepy, legal way when a huge conglomerate, these goon squad unions, they're sending a message through you, this one mom, all across the country. The reality is, though, Katie, as you know, if she but perseveres, she will get that information. There's no way in court that she can be not denied her right through Freedom of Information Acts to see the information she wants to see.
And she took that initial step by talking to the school board directly.
I want to talk about the statement you issued today. It was replete with critical race verbiage, such as equity, which raises serious concerns about CRT in the district. Equity is CRT code word for discrimination based on race. The school committee should focus on equality, treating students without regard to race. Why is the school committee so obsessed with treating students based on their skin color? We need answers to that, not lawsuits against parents.
And for that simple questioning of why are you so focused on this equity and not equality, she gets sued. And the thing is, it was leading up to this, because her just doing that, just going in front and saying this, caused the South Kingston NEA previously to target. Before this lawsuit, they had targeted her by holding a special membership meeting, and they singled her out as a danger. There's actually a PowerPoint that has a picture of her, of course, being interviewed on Fox News because danger. And they talked about how she's the one bringing forth this attack on public education.
Well,
wow, she's causing a lot of
We've seen
uproar.
this at Loudoun County and other places as well. This is the new tactic, right? This is the doxing. We've said many times in the Dr. Duke Show, 15 years ago, the public schools were begging you to help you, right? The public schools 15 years ago were telling you, please, help us. Help make your kids do their homework. Help us get your kids there on time. Teach your kids basic manners. We need you to teach your kids. 10 years later under Common Core, it was like, oh, no, this is too complicated for you. Stay home, stay in your lane. We don't want any part of you in our schools. Now, if you dare question what we're doing, we're going to launch a well-funded campaign against you, to dox you, to treat you like the enemy, all because your kids are in their public schools and they don't want to tell you anything about it.
Yeah, and the only, I guess, hopefully good thing about this entire thing is that at least her lawyers are looking at it like this lawsuit is never going to stand on its face, because she only requested public records, and they're all up in an uproar about, like, they're going to get all, the true information of what's happening. But they've already sent the lawyers, I guess, some of the information, the emails that were requested. And if you've ever seen any government document that's been redacted, the whole thing is literally every single letter has been blacked out. So there is nothing to look at. It looks more like a Rorschach than anything.
The reality is that they found a way around the Freedom of Information Act by blocking almost every aspect of it.
And then they're suing her.
Well, I think they're suing her also to slow her down.
Oh, absolutely.
If indeed there is dangerous stuff there. Because leave it to public school teachers to go back and forth without a filter. They're smarter at the university level. I've done Freedom of Information Act requests. I've actually sued for documents, and I get them back, and they're always redacted. But you know that these high school level people aren't thinking that way. So I guarantee you there's dirt. And by suing them, it's a way of distracting from this. It's a way of prolonging this. Yep. So the fact that they are suing does perhaps suggest that they really have something they want to hide.
All right, before we move on, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and then download, and then make sure you allow for notifications. Also, if you like listening to the audio podcast, we are available on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Now, Big Brother is not just watching you anymore. It used to be, Big Brother's watching you. No. Big Brother's threatening to take over in the true dictatorial fashion of Big Brother, 1984, George Orwell. Now, Democratic New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is Big Brother in this instance. There she be. She's threatened, and then she did remove the school board of a small rural school simply because they're going to go against the state health mandates and refuse to require masks in schools for this upcoming school year. Because we would hope that the local communities, school districts would decide what's actually happening in the local community schools, state, and the federal, and everyone else.
You just learned what BS local control is, right? So what happened in this small New Mexico town is the moms and dads just voted off the idiots. They voted themselves on it, and they said, our school district, of which we are in control, we're not wearing masks. And as sure as you could say Breaking Bad in New Mexico, the government decided what we're going to do is we're going to take over your little school board. We're going to take it over. The state of New Mexico is going to come in, take your duly elected members of the school board. We're going to override them, and we're going to force you to wear masks because that's what fascists do when local control is actually taken seriously by local people.
All right, well, that is the Spark Notes or Cliff Notes version.
Yes, it is.
Here's the detailed version.
The deets.
The Board of the Florida Municipal Schools voted on July 26th against requiring masking, leaving the choice up to the individual student and his parents. Now, the school board also had
So that's not a mandate.
That's from the school said they're doing it.
That's the point. It's not a mandate.
Yeah, the choice. Choice.
Choice.
We're all about choice here. The school board then decided to leave social distancing rules up to the discretion of the teachers, like within their very own classroom, right in front of their eyes. And they also ended the temperature checks.
Yeah.
Because it's New Mexico. Everyone's going to have a hot temperature, I'm thinking. Anyway. So Floyd, by the by, is small. So small, in fact, that there are about 100 people in the whole rural town, all 100 of them. Odds are you know if anyone even sneezed today, because that's how few people are there. Well, it's in eastern New Mexico. In the school system, though, it serves double that number. So 200 people, because you have to pull, obviously, students in from the various areas, from the farmers, the ranchers, the others living outside of the town limits. And so there's about 225 students that they educate, and that's K through 12. 225 in K through 12 is about that big. But no, we must control you.
Bet you the superintendent of that little district is making more than 200K.
I don't know. I'm not going to.
200 kids in that school district.
I do not know. Well, the state public education department, the PED, had sent the Floyd School Board a letter the very next day. They sent a letter saying that, you are going to be stripped of your position unless you follow our policies that are brought in line with our requirements for the upcoming school year, as the letter read. As you are aware, the actions above are inconsistent with the requirements put forward by the Public Education Department, in line with guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and/or guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics, to protect the health and safety of staff and students, and to ensure continued access to in-person learning that is not disrupted by the spread of COVID-19 virus.
Yeah. And so much for local control, right? We Democrats have decided that usually it goes the other way. Usually most of these, even in small towns, most of these school boards are all libbies or lefties or Democrats. And so there's never this conflict. Whatever the state people do is what these school boards do. But we've seen an influx of this with the more draconian nature of the schooling, all the critical race theory, all of this mandate, this endless mandate for masking your little 5-year-olds. Moms and dads are starting to take back some of these school boards, and now you see what happens, right? You've got the entire state administration ignoring your local control and bringing hammer and tongs down on you because you dare to govern your little piece of New Mexico in a way that they don't want you to. Yeah,
and so that threat turned into a reality of removing them. They
defied them. They went.
Yeah, the board again said, no, we're not going to do this. Yeah. And for that, then they must be kicked out. So the threat is a failure by the board to provide written confirmation of a vote rescinding the offending course of action and or adopting a course of action that conforms to the published health and safety requirements by noon of blah, blah, blah. Any further violations of COVID-safe practices could result in adverse licensure actions against licensed individuals, suspension of the school board governance, and other applicable enforcement actions. Okay, so then it happened. They were suspended because they said, to you. The 5-member board, because there's only 5 members on the school board, because again, small district.
I hope they're suing.
They were suspended, and the superintendent has been ordered to report directly to the outgoing state education secretary, Ryan Stewart. In a memo to the board, that Ryan Stewart, again, the education secretary, outgoing, said, we cannot put students, staff, and their families at unnecessary risk as we continue the fight against the Delta variant. By ignoring these basic safety measures, the board impairs the ability of the district to offer safe and uninterrupted in-person learning opportunities.
That's bullish. The Faucian level of Orwellian double talk here. Get over yourself. You're not doing this for the protection of the kids. You're not doing this for the protection of the students. You're just a bunch of little fascists who need the control, right? You got a teachers board, you got a teachers union at the national and state level in your ear, whining, and it's just easier to cave into them than it is to stand up for kids.
And before we go, just so everyone's aware, in New Mexico, the governor has mandated that all state workers be vaccinated or they have to undergo regular testing. And the state has actually started its second round of vaccine incentives to get you to, vax up. About 65% of residents who are 18 and older have been fully vaccinated.
How soon before we have, which finger should we use to express the sentiment, vax you?
Because everything is racist, art is racist too. Not art the human, art the subject.
I was worried about Art Garfunkel.
That's the first art I was thinking of. Poor Simon will have to not be with art. Anyway, you must see art education now through the lens of critical race theory. And as part of its broader diversity, equity, and inclusion vision, the National Arts Education Association, NAEA, sent their members a link to an article. It encouraged them to teach towards racial and social justice. Art. Okay.
Well, you seem surprised by that.
No, I'm not.
I know you're not. But if you think about how radical lefty art started, when was the last time we saw art that was not political propaganda? Art as agitprop for whatever the correct left-wing positions are. So, if they can find a way to make math and science political, you can darn well bet art courses are going to be nothing but one big, long, extended monologue on left-wing talking points.
Well, just so everyone's aware, the NAEA is an organization. It works with thousands of educators, pre-K, university, across the whole country, D.C., everywhere, also across the world, in 25 other countries. So it's a big organization. So for them to send out their little link to an article saying, hey, everyone, you should read this. They're just trying to disseminate all of this racism.
These big federally controlled, internationally propped up national arts organizations are also putting have been doing this for 20 years, putting politics ahead of art to begin with for a long time now.
This is true. Now, the article that they link to, I'm just going to give you a little bit of details about it. In that article, it says that we suggest considering critical race theory as a means to empower marginalized voices within schools and other educational settings, help learners think critically about schools. I can't even say that without laughing.
Didn't the teachers' unions just come out and say there's no critical race theory in the schools? Didn't they just tell us that?
Yeah, that's not a... Wait, so it's not a thing.
So it's not a thing.
But it is a thing.
It's not a thing, but you should use it as a thing.
The thing is the thing. Didn't you know? So they're supposed to help learners think critically about schools and other institutions that influence and shape their lives and inspire students to challenge systems of racial and ethnic injustice.
Did you hear one thing in that explanation having to do with art?
Not yet.
Nope.
But maybe we'll get there.
Because how does line drawing and pastel painting and clay modeling, how does that have anything to do with politics? The answer is it really doesn't.
Or does it? So they went on, and that's where we get to the art educators. As art educators strive to understand critical race theory. Because critical race theory is not in schools, but the art educators specifically are the ones trying to understand it. No one else, just the art educators.
What's so hard to understand?
About what? There's nothing. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Oh, that's why. So they're asked to study a non-existent curriculum about critical race theory.
That sounds very artistic to me, the artistic mind. Yeah. So as the educators strive to understand the CRT better while acknowledging the culture of power described above, how do we navigate fear, discomfort, and systems of power? How do we make good trouble and stand in the gap instead of occupying the sidelines?
This is one more educational subject matter that is decided. We would rather teach critical race theory and bully white kids than we would actually focus on the fine arts.
And what they're going to do then is they've even announced in their little plans is to recruit new members based on race, solely on race, not on art talent or expression of art. Just what does your skin pastel paint look like?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first instant classic of the week. This is the Sublime. We've done a couple months ago, maybe even more like a year and a half ago, we did a little bit of the Sublime in art. We just got done with an interesting story about how fine arts teachers now have decided they too would rather teach critical race theory than they would teach, fine art. So we're going to fill the gap here with our own version of real education, separated from what these idiot fake educators are all about in the progressive classroom. So what do I mean when I say the Sublime? Take a look at this picture. Give us a close-up of the picture, Mike, if you can. This is the great Frederick Edwin Church and his painting, the Sublime. The Sublime painting, you could also look at it as big sky painting, right? This is the great mighty outdoors in its panoply and its glory. And this one is doubly sublime because you've got this beautiful night scene as the sun is going down and you get those beautiful flame oranges and those deep yellows. And on top of them, you can see the mellow blues following as night is about to descend on this wonderful riverscape that Church paints so accurately and with such detail. But here you have an extra kick. Frederick Church has also created a skyscape that does seem to resemble the American flag. Hence the title, Our Banner in the Sky. And you can see that the deep blue where the flag would be, where the stars are, actual stars filling in for the stars, and those flames of blaze orange filling in for the stripes. Now this is interesting because this painting was released in 1861, the very same year that the Civil War began. And so Frederick Edwin Church is making a double statement here about the resplendent nature of the resplendent capacities of nature inspired by a creator, and the burgeoning patriotism in Church's case for the supporting the Northern cause against the South in the Civil War. And so Church himself was born in 1826. He would die in 1900. He was a great American landscape painter born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a central figure in the Hudson River School of American Landscape. These painters were best known for their large landscapes, often depicting mountains or waterfalls or rivers or sunsets. Church's paintings put an emphasis on realistic detail, dramatic light playing, and panoramic views. That's the Sublime. When you see the majesty of these, we're going to look at Church's work all week long, and you see the majesty of this natural landscape of this great country. It's hard not to be patriotic. It's not difficult to see the American banner floating in the sky.
All right, if you enjoy our content, please consider joining the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to keep bringing you these stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And of course, we will ship you our signature tumbler as just a little thank you. And before we go, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we're going to give that shout out to Carl from Arlington, Texas, all the way down there in Texas. Thank you, Carl.
Ranger up, Carl, and that's our show for Freedom Project. I'm Dr. Duke Cascadi. Until next time, stay expansive and educated, my friends.